Oh, hi, you're back. Well, today we're going to continue on with the user add function, and maybe we'll get into designing the user change screen. We left off, we had this window that we developed, and we added all the logic for so that when the add button is clicked, it creates and adds the record that was fleshed out in these edit boxes. And as you'll recall, we had this user access field in the user record, and we just set it to something. We set it to an A. No, we set it to a U. Okay. We need to fix that. We need to add a control on this form so that we can set it whichever way we want it. So what I'm going to have to do is going to probably make some room here. I'll have to move this add button. I'll probably have to move this down just a bit to give us room to add our other control in here. Right now we only choose between a U for user access and an A for administrative. And we could do that with either, we could do that with a drop-down menu. That's kind of excessive. Let's see, why don't we use use a selection box. We could use a radio button box. Let's try that and see how that works out. So we click on it up here, and then we come down here and click on our form. And there's our radio group. And you'll notice right now it's covering up our add button. We'll fix that. Let's get that there. Get it kind of lined up with our fields above. And yeah, now we can see our add button. The other thing you should know is if you hit the control key and then use the arrow keys, the cursor arrow keys, you can also move these boxes around. So if I push the control key down and I hit the up arrow, you could see you can make very fine adjustments. If I hit the down arrow, very fine left, or right rather, and then back left. You can basically move it a pixel at a time to finely adjust the position on the screen. Okay, so this is a radio group, and we have it selected because the little handles are on here for adjusting it. And it's also highlighted over here as radio group 1 of type radio group. And what this will let you do is this will let you have items that you can select in the box by clicking on them. And there's a little round button in front. Well, we'll see how that works here in a second. So this has a caption. It says radio group. We want that to say user access, okay? Or we could say user type, either one. It's basically the same thing. So we come over here to the caption, right? And we're going to change that. So we're going to delete the one that's there. And we're just going to type in user, I guess we call it access, because that's what we call it in the record, like that, and hit enter. And there it says user access now as the caption in the radio group. Now we want to add some items in there. We're going to have 2 items. So let's see, we got to come down here and we have items. It says T strings right here. Okay, so we click on this box, and then there's a little handle button near the end here. You click that, and now that brings up the string editor for that box. And we're going to have 2 types of users. And the first one is, the type is just user. user, and hit enter. And the second type is administrator. Administrator. There we go. And when we're done, those are the only two types we have. When we're done, we just click OK. And you'll see now it says user and administrator in the box. It's one above the other. Now let's make them side by side. So that has to do with the number of columns. And you'll see right here, there's columns. And it's currently set to 1. Let's set it to 2 and see what happens. So we go get rid of 1, type in 2, hit enter. And you'll notice now they're side by side because we now have 2 columns in here. Okay. Alrighty. All right, so we've added this new control. Now, of course, we're going to have to add logic. So let's go to our logic. And, oh, let's give it a name. Okay, right now this is radio group 1, and I think what we would say, let's go down to name. There's radio group 1, right? Well, I don't want that. We're going to call this, we're going to abbreviate to RGP for radio group. And then we're going to put in user access, radio group user access. Hit enter for that. Now it's different. Excuse me. So that's our control. Now we can go back in here to our logic. If I hit F12, I think it does that too. Yeah, F12. And we're back to the logic. And it is for users add. Okay. So here's where we're moving data from the window to the edit boxes in the user record. Now, if we look over here, you will see that there's a property called item index right there, and it's currently set to -1. Now, when it's -1, what that does, let's go back and look at our window. -1 means neither the user item or the administrator item is selected. They will both be unselected, not selected. But if I change this item index to a 0, hit enter, you'll notice that on the screen now, that's the default selection. So that's the way we're going to use it. The user will be the default selection. And if you want the user to have administrator access, you will have to actually click the administrator button in order to get that to happen. Okay? So setting the item index to 0 picks the first item in the list. Okay? And that's the way we're going to leave that. Now hit F12 and go back to our source code editor. And down here, we are currently just forcing it to be user, but we're going to want to change that now. So let's make a modification to this. And now we're going to say if, and the name of it is RGP USERACCESS. Oops, too many S's. If the radio group user access, and then what property? Okay, we can say item index, right? We'll say item index. That. Okay. If that is equal to 0, then this is going to be the case. So we'll just tab that in. then we will set user access equal to you. And then else what? It can only be one of two things. So it'd be user rec dot user access will be set equal to A. Oops. Oh boy, fat fingers this morning. All right. So that's the logic now to allow us to switch between the two user access types. Alrighty. And let's see what else we got here. I think everything else can stay the same. And that's the only place we need to deal with that. That's right. So let's save it, Control S, and now we can run it. All right. We're logging in, and we're currently logging in as J. Smith. And his password is A, capital A, lowercase bc, underscore 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll click login. We're in. Go to Files, Users, Add. And here's our new screen. Will it let me type in John Smith? John Smith. And user ID is J. Smith. And our user password is, well, we don't care. We'll use the current password, and we will confirm it. So that's A, B, C, underscore 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I hit Tab, it selected the Add button. Did you see that? I think Shift Tab backs out one. Okay, see? We're in the Confirm Password field. And when I hit Tab, it selects the Add button. We don't want that. We want it to select this box to make the next choice. So our tab order for these fields, for these objects, is not right. We need to fix that. So let's see what we need to do. Let's close this and get out of our application. Okay, we're out. And now we need to go back to our window. We can hit F12, or we can come up here and click this little toggle form icon. Okay, now we're back to this. Okay, and I just clicked on this spot on the form itself. Now if you right click on this form, you'll get a little pop-up menu, and you'll find in the list here tab order. Okay, now if you click on tab order, you will get a list of all the objects that are on the form, and you'll see that user access is listed as the 6th item, and it's at the very end of all the other items. Well, when we're tabbing through these fields, after we tab out of confirm password, we want user access to be the next object that receives focus. So what we do here is we click on this. You'll notice it highlights it in the design form designer. And now we want to move it up to right above where it says button user add. So there's an arrow over here, and when each time we click it, it moves the user access, the radio group, up one position. So we click it again, and now it's positioned as the fourth field. This is a zero-based list, so it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually the fifth field, but it's indexed as item number 4. So at this point, we have now changed the tab order for the objects in this window. So we're done with that. We just close this, and now it's all set. We can save our changes, Control S, and we can now run it. And we're back to logging in again. And we're going to log in. And we're going to go to users add. And we're going to put in John Smith. And the user ID is J Smith. And his password. Alrighty. And if we hit tab, okay, tab now went to here. And here we can now select whether he's an administrator, right? We click on this, administrator, we click on this, he's now a user, right? And if I clicked add, it's not going to accept it, hopefully, because there's already a John Smith there. It says this username already exists. So we've now added this functionality to the user's add window. Okay. So we can close this, and we can close out of this, and get back out of the logon, and we're back to developing. All right. So I think that fleshes out all the functionality for users add. Now, we need to look at something else in the logic for the logon. So let's switch back over here to our source code editor. And when we do a logon, let's go back here to unit logon. Okay, and that's this window, the first window we show. All right. When we start up, we determine if one of the first things it does when this window starts up is it determines if we've assigned the location where we're going to share all our files. That's what this does, shares. And we get the name of the directory where all our files are going to be located. And by the way, we can clean this up now. We're not using all these commented out lines. Why don't we just go ahead and let's just delete all that stuff since we're not using it anymore. Get rid of that, clean that up a little bit. Okay. So yeah, we set that app file path variable to the actual pathway to the files. Okay, that's done. And then and then in our code, when we go to click the logon click, we use that path. We determine first of all if it's equal to nothing, or if the user's dat file, which contains our usernames, IDs, and passwords, if that does not exist, if either or of these is true, we then use this backdoor mechanism to log on. The default user will have to be back, and the default password will then be door. Okay, and then we set a user ID of badmin and a username of badministrator. Excuse me. So this kind of needs to change. If we have a user only, if we have a user with a user access of you only, we still want this to work because there's no administrator set up yet, right? If we've created a user who has administrative authority, then we want to disable this, and that means that only an individual that's been assigned admin authority can get into the system. So we want this code to kind of be ignored if there's an administrator on file. Well, the only way we're going to know that is if we read through all of the records in the user's .dat file and see if there's an administrator assigned. So we're going to have to do that. And then if that's true, we will then set another condition up here that must be tested in order for this to continue to work. Let's see. Now we have, and this is the code that executes when there is a when there is a file set up. Okay. And here's where we read our file right here. So I think what we want to do is we want a variable. Oh, we don't need share up here anymore. That's not true anymore, is it? We now use the public variable app file path to pass the locations of our files. We don't use this share here anymore. So this line can also go bye-bye. We'll get rid of it. But we are going to add a variable, and that's going to be what? I guess we'd call it admins. Let's call it admins. All right. We're going to add a variable, and it's going to be called admins. And it's going to be an integer, and it's the number of, oops, not number of current administrators. Okay. And when do we do that? Okay, so we down here in this logic, we are going to say first of all, okay, we're gonna have a special section now, and we're going to say read through users dat and count the number of administrators, like that. start by clearing our counter, right, which we just created up here, right here, admins. Okay, we're going to clear that. So we're going to say admins is equal to 0. And then we're going to have a while loop that's infinite. So we're going to say while true, do begin. And it put the end in for us, so we don't need to do that. And now we're going to read the file. Okay. Now we have to know if it exists. So if app file path doesn't exist, we're not going to do this. So this needs to be inside an if, doesn't it? Yeah. And we don't do this anymore. At this point, if app file path is equal to let's see, if it's equal to 0, we're done. We won't do this admin thing. Oh, and I should do this admins equals 0. Oh, we can do that when we get in here. So let's get rid of it there. Let's put that number in up here. Okay. And I'm just going to back here say assume no administrators. Okay. And then here we're going to, this is where we're check for, nope, I should say check for an assigned file path. That's what we're doing there. Space this out a little bit, make it more readable. And here we're going to say if there is no app file path, then we're going to exit, right? So we're going to exit. Okay, get rid of that. Get rid of that. So in other words, this code's not going to happen if there's no app file path assigned. Okay? However, if there is, now we're going to move on to reading the file. And reading the file is done with a file read. So let's just steal this line up here. Oh. Let's just take that. Actually, we can use all this, can't we? Use all that. Take all those lines. Okay. So we're going to hit Control C, and then we're going to move down. And right in here where our loop we're creating is, so we're going to put it in there. Control V. Now we're getting somewhere, huh? We need an I stat up here because we need it. Okay, so this is I stat, and that's an integer, right? Like this. Yeah, I like to line things up. There we go. Alrighty. Okay, so we're assuming there's no administrators. We're getting our app file path. If it doesn't exist, we leave. If it does exist, we go into a loop. We're going to need IRECNO because the loop uses IRECNO. So we need rec no, and oops, gotta put colon, and that is an integer, like that. All right, and we're reading a user rec. So we need the user rec, and we need a buffer. So we've got to put user rec in here. User rec, and that's a type T user rec. That. Okay, so we're going to read our user record, and if status is bad, we break, and if the user stat of the in the record is A is not A, we don't do any more. And now we're going to do if user rec dot user access, that's the one we're looking for right there. If that is equal to A, we have an administrator, right? And what do we do when we have an administrator? We increment admins. So we do inc admins. And that's it. And this is our end of our while. All right. That's the end of our loop. So let's just go through the loop again, be sure we're doing this right. Well, we'll go through the whole thing. We set admins to 0. Now this is on form create. So when the form is first displayed, this is the logon form, it's going to set the number of administrators to 0. It's going to check to see if we have a path. If we don't, it's just going to exit, which will leave admin set to 0. Otherwise, we do have a path. It will then attempt to read the app file path with a directory separator and then the name of the file, users.dat. And the record number is not set to 0 yet, is it? So before this starts, right before the while, we set irec number is equal to 0. Okay, so that way we'll start with the very first record. Okay, so if it comes back with a bad status, a number less than 0, then it will break. And that's what we want. And then if it's a good status, we will go ahead and increment the record number to point to the next possible record. And then we will check to see if this record is active. If it's not active, we skip that and we go to look for the next record, which is fine. If it is active, it'll fall through, and then we will test to see if this user has administrator access. Okay, so let's label some of these things. We're going to say if not an active user, skip this record. Okay. So then if it falls through, it's an active user. And then we're going to say if this is an administrator. Okay. Then increment admins count. Admins count. Right. And that's the end. We had a little loop. It will loop until it doesn't get a good read. So that means it'll read every record in the file. Alrighty. And that's it. Okay. So that means that admins will be set to a number greater than 0 if it's okay. So now, do we need to say if app file path? We're basically determining that by admins. In other words, admins will be set to 0 if there's no app file path. Admins will be set to 0 if there's no user's dat file. Admin will be set to 0 if there are no administrators. So we can change this logic. We can now say if admins, right, admins is equal to 0. And we can get rid of all this other stuff. Right? If admins is equal to 0, then we can do this. All right. So instead, this comment here is now if there are no administrators. So we'll change this comment if there are no administrators. Oh boy. Administrators. Then all this happens, right? That's the end of the if. So we won't say this. We're going to say if there are no administrators. It kind of brings up a good point too. When you're correcting your code, you also need to correct your comments if necessary. Because if I don't change these comments to what accurately reflects what the code's doing, those become misleading and confusing to another person reviewing this code, right? And we don't want that to happen. The purpose of the comments is to quickly allow someone who's working on the code to see what the code should be doing, right? And then, so if there are no administrators, then allow the backdoor, right? I guess we can make that all one word, right? Not backdoor. Okay, so if there are no administrators, then allow the backdoor. That's all this does. Okay. So if there are, so this changes now. This now says, this should say, if there are, if there is one or more active administrators, then what do we do? So basically, admins is doing a lot of the work for us now, isn't it? No, we don't care about that. Actually, that first line, no, that's not what I want. Okay. Let's get rid of this. And it says if user's dat exists, then we read the file and we check to see if it's active, and we check to see if the hashes match. That's what we do. Okay. So then we just say if the user dat exists, file exists, find matching MD5. That's what we're doing. All right. So if the user's dat file exists, what we do is we calculate the MD5 for the person that's logging in. And then we scan through the file and find a matching MD5. And has to be active. The hash has to match. Yeah. And so when it does match, which is what this says right here, so when they match, we set all this stuff up and we exit. Otherwise, we run out of the bottom of this while loop and we put out the message that the logon failed. Okay. I think we're all set. So currently, John Smith is just a user. So now when we execute this code, since there is no admin assigned, it's going to go back to using backdoor. Well, let's see if that works now. Okay. So let's save what we've got, Control S, and let's run this program now. Oh, shares. We don't have shares. Form show. We don't have shares. Yeah, this is no longer. Yeah, this is in logon. Yeah, it's not share more, it's app file path. This is supposed to be app file path. Right. Oh, and this is in set path. Okay. Okay. I see. Oh, yeah. So I do need share here. Do I need it throughout this thing though? Okay, I guess I can use share in here. stemp's being used temporarily. Actually, I don't need stemp. I can just call this share, right? Call this share. And just say, get rid of this, right? Get rid of that. And just say, and this is just going to be edit path, right? Edit path dot. And I think that's text, isn't it? Yes. Right. And then just write share out. If the length of share is greater than 0, do I want to make share just a temporary thing? So when we show the form, we determine if there is a share. Okay. Oh, I would just make that temporarily there. That's all. So we'll just have a share, and it's string, and yeah. Let's save that. Control S. Let's try running it again. Okay. That worked. Okay. Backdoor should now work. Because we don't have an admin set up. We're in. All right. Now, if we add a user that has administrative authority, then backdoor will stop working. So let's add a new user. And let's make it something we can remember. So the user's name is, well, let's see. We have John Smith. Let's make it Jill Smith. User ID is going to be Jill Smith. Her password will be well, it can't have all lowercase, can we? Well, let's just say it's Jill with a capital J underscore 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Jill underscore 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to make her an administrator and add her. Okay, so we should now have a Jill Smith. Right? So let's close this window. We're back to our logon. Let's see if backdoor works now. BACKDOOR. Logon. Ooh. Ooh. We still have backdoor working. Why is backdoor working? Okay. Let's go to our logon window. And maybe we ought to take a look at our file and see what's in it. Maybe we should do that. Obviously, admins must be coming back equals it's must be coming back equal to 0. I wonder why it's doing that. Let's go out and just take a look and see what's in our file. Do that. So we're in Lazarus right here, and we're doing our YouTube code right here. And now we have a user's dat file. Let's okay. Let's go to our command line interface, and we're going to look at users dat. So we've got to go into change directory to Lazarus / YouTube anything, right? There we are, we're in code. And now we want anything.dat, ls, anything.dat. And users.dat, we want to take a hex dump of that. So we have hex dump dash capital C, the name of the file, users.dat. And there it is. So we do have a Jill Smith right here. And here's her MD5. Yes. Active user, Jill Smith. Jill Smith is the user ID. And she is an admin. So it did write the record out. We did add her. Okay. So she's there. Now, when we start up, when we first start up our login process, down here we have form create. Okay, well, let's just set a trap here so we can start looking in our code to see what happens. All right, let's run this. And we've trapped. And we use F8 to execute the next statement. And then F8 again. And now we should have an app file path set. Yes, we do. It's set. So if it's equal to 0, it would exit. It did not. So now it sets irec_no, our integer, to 0. And while true, it will do a read. And it's going to start with record 0 right here. It's going to read it. And the status came back 1. So that's good. So it won't break. Huh. What happened? Why didn't it execute the code down here? So now we're reading record number, we're reading record 0 again. If status is less than 0, break. Increment the record. Oh, okay. I don't know what happened there. So now we look to see if user stat is an A. which means, if it's not A. So it goes to the next thing. It looks at user access. That's a U. And so it's not going to increment admins. It's going to read the next record. Status came back 0. Increments to the next record. User status is equal to active. User access is an A. It increments admins. Okay. And now it's going to read the next record. The status came back -4, so it's going to break. Okay. So we should have an admin at this point. Okay, then we come back up in here. Our logic is, if admins is equal to 0, what's admins? It's 1. Then we do all that. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, we're looking at this. Okay. We're going to set a trap here. And we're going to hit F9. And here's where we're now going to do, we're going to type in backdoor and it should fail. So let's type in backdoor and hit log on. And now we've executed this. And what do we see? Admins is equal to 1. So let's hit F8. If the file exists, so it does exist, right? If I hit F8, I get a hash computed. And now I'm going to scan through the file looking for a match. What's the status? The status came back 0. So we're good. Increment the record number. Now, user status is an A, which it means active. So now we compute the hash. No, we get the hash for this user. I computed a hash for the user ID and the text. And now I am checking to see if the hash that I calculated back here is equal to the hash in the record read. It did not. So it went to the next record. Okay, and now I read the next record. My status is okay, so I've read the next record. This would be Jill. I increment the record number. And she's active. And now I compare the hash to the one in the record. And it failed. Okay. And now I have a bad status because I'm reading beyond the end of the file. So log on failed. Let's go take a look at our form. Back log on failed. Okay. And it should have. So we're good. We're good. So if I want to log on as an administrator, I would put in Jill Smith. And what was her password? Oh, gee, I forgot her password. Can you believe that? Was it Jill underscore? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. Let me get rid of all this. F9. Yes. So she can now log in. Alrighty. That's working. Yep. So adding an administrator disabled backdoor as the default login to become an administrator. So now you must know, you must have an administrator ID to log in and get administrator access, which brings up the next point. In our main application window, let's make sure we're not running. I just want to make sure we're not running. We're not. Stop is disabled, run is enabled, so we're not running. Okay. That brings up the next thing, which is if we want to make certain functions only available to the administrator, how do we do that? Let's take a look at our main application here. And in order to get into users, right now anybody can. But that's this menu users item right here. You see that? So when this form is displayed, we're going to have to check to see who logged in, what access they have, if they're administrator or a user, and then only enable the items in here that they're eligible to use, right? Only an administrator can set the path, and only an administrator can add, change, and delete users. A user shouldn't be able to do that. So when this form is displayed, we're going to have to do that. And this form's only displayed after somebody's successfully logged on. So we're going to go to events and say what? On show? Right, on show. On show. So when this form is shown, we are going to either enable or disable various set path, users add. So in this uses clause for this, we're going to need to have unit logon as one of the things that it sees. So let's just add it in front here. We'll just say unit logon. Right. Now in unit logon, what do we share publicly? We share a user's ID and a user's name. We're also going to need to share user access. That's what we're going to need to do. So let's add that. We're going to have user access. And what is user access? User access, I guess it's a string. Let's see what we make it. So when we log on, right here, we're going to have to add user access. Right. And we're going to set that to what? Something in the user record. So that's going to be user rec dot. Oops, I must have spelled something wrong. That's weird. Why isn't that coming up with Okay, sorry about that phone call interrupting. I was getting confused, and the reason I was having confusion was we were down here. Making some changes in our code. And where were we? Okay, we were right here, and we were adding the user access public available variable to our logon window. And I got to this part where I'm setting user access equal to a dotted variable in this record, and it wasn't coming up with the right stuff. I mean, array C is not in our record, and I was confused. And it turns out the reason that this is happening is when I set up user access above, back here, right, where'd I put it? Here it is. I didn't finish this off. And so I didn't tell it what variable type it was. And what that's causing is it's not allowing this, I guess you'd call it like just-in-time compiler to check my code. And it saw this as an error. And now it's hosing up completion, code completion. I have to tell it what this is. So let's just call it a character for now. It's a single character. It's going to be an A or a U for admin or user. Now, by fixing this, now if I go back down below where we're setting that, and we're setting that here, right here. Now, if I hit dot at the end of user record, code completion will now work. You see? Now it's coming up with the correct fields for this record. And user access is what we want. So we just hit enter, and that code completes it. So that's correct now. All right. Okay. So we will now have the user access available to my application, right? Because my application now references this form. This form, T-form logon, is now referenced, and I now have user access available to me to test. So let's let's Control S this, and let's go back to my application, the main form, and we now reference unit logon, right? And when the form is shown, that's where we're currently at. When the form is shown, we're going to have some logic. Let's go to properties, and let's go to the and here we are in the main menu. Okay, my main menu. And there are certain fields that will not be available to a regular user. So let's take a look. This is the main menu. This is the files menu. Now you see in here, in properties for the files menu, let's bring up the form. Okay, so we have, I hate this. Why is it covering my stuff up? I hate that. Setting a path is really an admin function. So set path is this. It's enabled. Well, it shouldn't be enabled unless I am an administrator. So in here, on form show, we should be able to take menu set path, that item, and make it disabled. If normally it's enabled, so we will say if, and we want frm logon dot excuse me, man, user access, if that is equal to you. So as if he's a user, then begin. Excuse me. Still getting over the allergies. You get that tickle in your lung and you can't get rid of it. Excuse me. All right. So if they're just a regular user, we're going to disable certain functionality. So one of the things we're going to disable is set menu set path. So we're going to say menu set path dot enabled is going to be false. Not enabled, right? If they're a user. What else are we going to disable? Well, users. That whole users thing. Add, change, and delete. Only an administrator can do that. So we're going to say menu users. Oops. Users dot enabled is equal to false. Can't add or change users. Okay. What else do we have available so far? Well, you can exit. So right now, if you're a regular user, you can't do much of anything. Let's go back and look at our form. Yeah, if you're a regular user, You can you can't set the path, and you can't do anything with users yet. All you can do is exit. So that's what we've just done. We've taken that that character that we store in the file as to whether they're a user or an administrator, and we are now controlling what they can do. Now, have we done everything? Let's see. Let's go back to our logic here. Yeah. So basically everything is enabled until it determines that you're a regular user, and then it shuts off the things that the user shouldn't be able to do. All right, let's save that. And let's see if we compile and get any errors. Hey, we're running. Okay. So we had a regular user. This is J. Smith. And his password was capital A, lowercase b, c, underscore 1234. I'm going to log in. He's in. Let's go to Files. Look at that. Set path. Users is disabled. All I can do is exit. So we've now implemented conditional access to our menu functions. Okay. And we've tested, now we have multiple users in our user dat file. We have a user and an administrator. So we're moving along nicely. Let's run it again and log in now as Jill Smith. So now it's Jill Smith, and her password is Jill underscore 1234. And log in. She should have access to everything. Yes. She can set path. She can do users, add, change, and delete, and exit. Now let's log in as, let's try logging in as backdoor. We shouldn't be able to. Backdoor, that should no longer be available. Enter. And no, you cannot. Okay. Well, that's enough for today. We've added some functionality. We're well on our way. I think the next time we will design the change user form and get that functioning. And then the next time we will probably do the delete user and do some more testing. And we're well on our way to having a functional application. Now, right now, I don't know what this application is going to do. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. It would be nice to have some kind of a small little database or something. I'm not going to implement SQL. I'm not planning on it. Quite frankly, the Lazarus connection to the database stuff, it's pretty funky. Let's see, I think that's under data access. Yeah, you see all these file things. And then there's data controls. And they have objects you can lay on your form for doing text and that sort of thing to the file. And here we have SQLDB. And these are the things you can hook up. You can do PostgreSQL. I think these are MySQL. Yeah. ODBC. So you could connect, if you were writing on Windows, you could connect to the Windows database, SQL database. I think this is Firebird. database. I don't remember what this is. It might be SQLite. There's various types that you can connect to. Personally, I find SQL pain in the rump. I avoid it at all costs. Very good. Well, it's been a busy day. Pretty popular. Very well. Well, we're pretty much done for today. I want to thank you for spending the time to watch me go through all this stuff. And I hope you've learned something. Probably not to become a programmer. But at any rate, thank you for watching. And as usual, if you find this content helpful, give me a like. If you want to see more, please take the time to subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a good day.